Chapter 51 Canon Fodder Male Supporting Role in a Strange World 2. You are listening at novelfold.audio. Hey, Jiayu, I got back last night but totally spaced on telling you guys. You get back okay too, right? Shiqing had just walked in the door when Su Qianqian called. Yeah, I'm back. Oh, good, Su Qianqian said, sounding relieved. She and Gao Jiayu had gone exploring that abandoned building yesterday afternoon and somehow got separated. She couldn't even get a signal to call. Luckily, some nice person gave her a ride home. She got back, crashed hard, and completely forgot to reach out. Shiqing hung up and headed to the original owner's room. This world's a minefield, and he needed to level up his own abilities, fast. Last night, they'd all agreed to check out that place, stumbled into Ghost King Mo Cheng's pad, and got knocked out cold. Mo Cheng wanted to off them right then and there, but then he saw Su Qianqian and thought she looked just like someone from 1,000 years ago. So, he just knocked out the other three, made sure Su Qianqian couldn't find them, and then disguised himself as a good Samaritan to take her home. This was their meet cute in the original story. Later in the original plot, the owner and his crew ended up in the ER. Su Qianqian, since Mo Cheng had played the hero and driven her home, fell asleep and only thought about contacting them the next day, but the other three were still out cold, so how could they answer the phone? Su Qianqian had to go back to the site, where she found them passed out and called an ambulance. Those three caught some nasty bug and were in the hospital for weeks. They never really bounced back after that. Thinking about all that, Shiqing started meditating in the owner's room. This world was all about spiritual energy. He sat in a cross-legged position and started pulling in power. Pronto, Shiqing holed up for a few days, doing nothing but training. Then Wang Zhiyuan hit him up, asking him to hang out that afternoon. Shiqing figured, why not? He could check out how those two were doing physically. They'd been hit with some serious yin energy that day. Shiqing had given them each an exorcism talisman to ward it off, so hopefully, they'd cleared it out and it hadn't messed with their health. The four of them were in college together, all at the same school. They hung out pretty regularly, plus, if he went, he might spot Mo Cheng. When the four of them got together, Su Qianqian was usually around, and where Su Qianqian went, Mo Cheng was sure to follow. Shiqing got ready and headed to the meetup spot Wang Zhiyuan had mentioned. Wang Zhiyuan and Li Jiajun were already there. Su Qianqian was MIA. Shiqing carefully examined the two guys. No sign of yin energy. Good. After a bit, Su Qianqian finally showed. And sure enough, Mo Cheng was standing right behind her. He was decked out in some old-school, fancy black robes, his hair in a high knot, and he had this frosty look on his face. But when he looked at Su Qianqian, his eyes softened. Mo Cheng wasn't making himself visible. Wang Zhiyuan and the others couldn't see him. Only Shiqing, with his awakened eyes, could. Mo Cheng saw Shiqing looking at him and immediately went on high alert. He stared Shiqing down for a few minutes before finally looking away, giving Su Qianqian those puppy dog eyes again. These get-togethers usually involve grabbing a bite and catching up. Then they'd either go do something else or head home. This time, after they ate, Wang Zhiyuan got all secretive. He looked around, making sure no one was listening, and said, okay, listen to this. That place we went to the other day? It's haunted. I heard a bunch of people kicked the bucket there, but they kept it all hush-hush. I heard it from my cousin, he's a cop. He freaked when he found out we were there. He clutched his chest, still shaken up. The other two were horrified. Li Jiajun hesitated. Seriously? You're not messing with us, are you? Wang Zhiyuan, offended that he didn't believe him, launched into the facts. We were only there for a few minutes, and we were out cold, man, until, late at night. Is that even remotely normal? Li Jiajun couldn't argue with that. Seeing them so freaked, Su Qianqian asked, did something really happen to you guys that day? Are there really ghosts? It was freaky. We passed out on the ground almost as soon as we walked in. Lucky you got back early. But who knows if ghosts are real? I mean, we didn't see anything. But my dad always says it's better to be respectful of that kind of stuff. He knows some masters, apparently, they're the real deal. Wang Zhiyuan said. Li Jiejun scoffed, we've been to 1,000,000 places and never seen anything. How would I know? But you know what they say, better safe than sorry. Shi Qing saw his chance and chimed in, just stay away from those abandoned places in the future. If something like that happens again, you might not be so lucky. The other three nodded seriously. The four of them were trust fund kids with similar backgrounds. Their families were cool, they were all about the same age, so they got along great, maybe because they had everything they wanted, they craved adventure, digging into the unknown and looking for a thrill. This scare was probably enough to keep them out of those deserted places for a while. As for Mo Qing getting his revenge on them, well, bring it on. Shi Qing glanced at Mo Qing behind Su Qianqian. When he saw Su Qianqian laughing and joking with the others, his face went ice cold. A thick cloud of yin energy rolled off him, dropping the temperature a good 10 degrees. Everyone but Shi Qing felt a chill. Luckily, the exorcism talismans Shi Qing had given Wang Zhiyuan and Li Jiejun were doing their job. The yin energy was just making them feel cold, it couldn't latch on and mess them up. And Mo Qing wasn't about to let his yin energy hurt Su Qianqian. Man, it's freezing in here, you guys feel that? Wang Zhiyuan said, rubbing his hands. They were just talking about ghosts and stuff, and now it's freezing in the middle of summer. Wang Zhiyuan got goosebumps, thinking back to waking up in that place the other night. Yeah, I'm cold, too. Maybe they cranked the AC too high, Li Jiejun said, sounding unsure. They chatted for a bit and then split up. As they were leaving, Shi Qing saw Mo Cheng's nasty glare when he looked at them. In the original plot, after this meetup, the owner and his buddies started getting haunted within days and had all those crazy experiences. Now that Shi Qing was in the picture, he wasn't letting that happen again. After Su Qianqian left, he snuck another amulet into Wang Zhiyuan and Li Jiejun. If those little ghosts from the original story tried to mess with them again, this time, they'd be in for a surprise. Chapter 52 Cannon Fodder Male Supporting Role in a Strange World 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Everything felt normal after that day. A few days later, Shi Qing was getting ready to wash up for bed when he walked into the bathroom and immediately noticed something was off. Sure enough, when he turned on the faucet, dark red blood came out instead of water. Shi Qing narrowed his eyes and glanced at the mirror. He caught a glimpse of a vague, eerie black shadow behind him. Here we go. Calmly turning off the water, Shi Qing spun around and pulled 2 talisman papers from his space. He threw one straight at the black shadow. The shadow shrieked and crashed to the floor. The black shadow's form gradually solidified. It was a male ghost, looked to be about 40. He looked like he did when he died, a gaping hole in his head, face and body covered in blood. He was terrifying. Shi Qing watched the ghost, his spirit already fading from the talisman's impact. It seemed his current power level was still too weak. The talismans he made weren't nearly as strong as the ones he'd crafted back in his original world. He could barely deal with a low-level ghost like this. The talisman he'd just thrown had been made a few days ago. His cultivation was so weak now, the power of his talismans was less than a sliver of what they used to be. Shi Qing approached the male ghost, who looked up at him in pure terror. Sir, spare me. Please, sir, have mercy. The ghost begged frantically. He was just following orders. They said this guy was clueless and easily scared. How could he have such a powerful talisman? Listening to his ghostly pleas and seeing the dark karma radiating from him, Shi Qing knew this ghost had hurt a lot of innocent people. He had no intention of letting him off the hook. He tossed another talisman. The male ghost screamed as his soul disintegrated on the spot. Once the ghost vanished, everything in the bathroom went back to normal. Shi Qing finished washing up, meditated, and went to sleep, just like any other night. Meanwhile, Wang Zhiyuan and Li Jiejun were dealing with their own creepy experiences. They didn't have Shi Qing's cool head. Wang Zhiyuan's experience was similar to Shi Qing's. Blood came out of the bathroom faucet. He figured it was just the water and didn't think too much of it, but then he heard a noise, turned, and saw a long-haired woman. He was so freaked out, he collapsed on the floor, almost passing out. Before the woman's hair could wrap around him, he scrambled out of the bathroom on his hands and knees. Luckily, the ghost didn't follow him. Wang Zhiyuan stumbled down to the living room and nearly burst into tears when he saw his dad. Li Jiejun ran into a ghost while driving home that night. At a dark intersection, someone darted out in front of his car. He couldn't stop in time and hit the person, sending them flying. Panicked, Li Jiejun jumped out of the car to check on the victim. But then the person, lying in a pool of blood, suddenly raised his head, his face covered in gore, and grinned a huge, terrifying smile. Li Jiejun froze, his body paralyzed with fear. He could only stare at the figure on the ground. Luckily, as the thing reached out to grab him, it vanished. Li Jiejun looked at the empty space, his legs weak with terror, and floored it out of there. Shiqing found out about their experiences the next day. Wang Zhiyuan told everyone about his night. When they realized they'd all had creepy encounters, they decided to meet up. Li Jiejun was too scared to drive, so they agreed to meet at his place. Since it involved the supernatural and Su Qianqian was a girl, Wang Zhiyuan created a separate group chat, leaving her out. After hearing about the ghosts, Wang Zhiyuan worried Su Qianqian might be targeted too, so he discreetly checked on her. Once he confirmed she was okay, he didn't call her. In Li Jiejun's room, Wang Zhiyuan recounted his story, his face pale and his voice shaking. He was clearly still shaken up from the night before. Li Jiejun was the same. The experience had given him a fear of driving, and he didn't think he could get behind the wheel anytime soon. Only Shiqing remained calm, barely reacting to their terrifying tales. They looked at him, surprised by his composure, and asked about his experience. Shiqing told them about the ghost in his bathroom. They stared at him, baffled by his lack of reaction. Wang Zhiyuan asked in disbelief, "Gao Jiayu, aren't you scared?" That he hadn't slept a wink all night. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the long-haired ghost's voice. How could Gao Jiayu be so chill? Nah, it's just something that tries to scare you. It can't actually hurt you. Shiqing wasn't lying. Macheng wouldn't risk killing them, and the ghosts he sent knew not to cause any real harm. Besides, Wang Zhiyuan and Li Jiejun were wearing the protective amulets he'd given them. Those ghosts couldn't touch them. Wang Zhiyuan, Li Jiejun, Gao Jiayu's words kind of made sense, but shouldn't normal people be freaking out after something like this? Seeing their bewildered expressions, Shiqing dropped another bomb, telling them to prepare for the worst. We all ran into something at the same time. You guys ever think there might be something bigger going on? If there is, this might not be a one-time thing. They shuddered, realizing Gao Jiayu might be onto something. After their encounters, they told their parents, who had already called in an expert. Now, they could only hope the professionals could figure out what was going on and fix it. They talked for hours before splitting up. After leaving Li's house, Shiqing checked on Macheng's situation through the system. Meanwhile, Macheng and Su Qianqian were sitting in a restaurant. Su Qianqian had slipped and almost fallen, and Macheng had helped her up. She recognized him as the nice guy who'd driven her home and offered to treat him to dinner. "Host, I saw everything." Macheng practically tripped her, the system said. "Yeah, that's his standard move. He's such a phony. Two-faced." While the system complained about Macheng, he and Su Qianqian were having a great time. "Thank you, Mr. Mo," Su Qianqian said, genuinely grateful. After he'd driven her home last time, she'd forgotten to get his contact info and never had the chance to thank him. Now he'd helped her again. Su Qianqian thought Macheng was such a good person. Seeing her grateful look, Macheng said, "You're welcome. Thank you so much. You've helped me twice now." "It was nothing, just a small favor." Su Qianqian felt even more awkward. Finally, they exchanged contact information before leaving. Macheng kept finding excuses to see Su Qianqian over the next few days, and their relationship grew closer. Of course, Macheng didn't reveal that he was the Ghost King. Su Qianqian just thought he was a regular guy. Chapter 53 Canon Fodder Male Supporting Role in a Strange World 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just as Mo Cheng, who as the Ghost King wasn't afraid of sunlight, was finally becoming friends with Su Qianqian through daily coincidences, the Wang family's invited master arrived. "Jiayu, my dad hired a heavenly master. They say he's super powerful. Wanna come over and have him take a look at you?" Wang Zhiyuan had been so spooked that day that he ran downstairs and bumped into his dad. Seeing his son's pale, panicked face, his dad asked what was wrong. Wang Zhiyuan recounted everything that happened in the bathroom. After hearing his son's story, Wang Zhiyuan's dad went up to check, but everything in the bathroom looked normal, nothing like what his son described. Still, seeing his son so scared, he decided to believe him. The next day, he pulled some strings to contact the Heavenly Master. Now that Wang Zhiyuan's Heavenly Master was here, Wang Zhiyuan wanted Shiqing and Li Jiejun to come over and see. Okay, Shiqing replied. Cool, I already called Jiejun too. The master's almost at my place. Get over here quick. Alright, be right there. Shiqing got ready and headed to the Wang residence, curious about the Heavenly Masters in this world. He remembered the original plot mentioning several major Heavenly Master families, but even combined, they couldn't eliminate Mo Cheng in Mo City. As the Ghost King, Mo Cheng had been a menace for 1,000 years, but he'd mellowed out a bit since getting together with Su Qianqian. When Shiqing arrived at the Wang house, Li Jiejun had just shown up. The Li family had also called a Heavenly Master, but theirs wasn't there yet, so Li Jiejun came over too. Driving wasn't his forte, so a driver brought him. Seeing Shiqing, Li Jiejun walked over and they went inside together. Inside, Wang Zhiyuan was waiting for them at the door. Spotting them, he rushed over and whispered, "The Heavenly Master my dad hired might not be so great. I know I saw weird stuff. Those residual yin qi things they talk about in novels, he didn't see anything." Mo Cheng was busy and hadn't even noticed when the little ghost he sent to scare them vanished. So unlike in the original story where Wang Zhiyuan and company were constantly terrified, they only experienced one incident. The ghost sent to scare Wang Zhiyuan only showed up once before getting destroyed, leaving minimal yin qi. Though Wang Zhiyuan switched rooms afterward, he still lived in the Wang family villa, and any yin qi in his system had long since been exorcised and cleansed, leaving no trace. Hearing this, Shiqing figured the Heavenly Master was either a fake or just not very good. Li Jiejun also suspected the Heavenly Master wasn't all that, but kept quiet. The three of them headed toward the Wang family hall. Shiqing immediately noticed the Heavenly Master in his Taoist robes. He looked to be about 50, average looking, but with a distinct aura. He was a foundation-building cultivator. Considering the level of spiritual power in this world, a 50-year-old foundation-building monk was pretty impressive. Shiqing hadn't been in this world long, and his own cultivation was only at the 9th level of qi refining, much weaker than this guy. But his soul was far stronger. He also had a spiritual artifact concealing his cultivation, so the other man couldn't tell he was a cultivator too. Seeing them enter, Wang Fu, sitting nearby, introduced them. "This is Taoist priest Wu from Tianqin Temple." Then, pointing at Shiqing and Li Jiejun, he said, "These are my son's friends. They were the ones who ran into some weird stuff on the same night as my son." Taoist Master Su Wu glanced at Shiqing and Li Jiejun, and Shiqing saw him frown. Taoist Master Xinwu was totally confused. If they'd encountered evil spirits, their bodies should show some reaction, but all three looked perfectly healthy and had no yin energy at all. Bizarre, but they probably weren't lying. They wouldn't pay a fortune to bring him here just for a prank. Besides, nobody messes with a Heavenly Master like that. Taoist Master Su Wu circled Shiqing and his friends, scrutinizing them, but still found nothing. Shiqing pretended not to notice. The talisman he'd placed inside them had been drawn in his original world. Taoist Master Wu's current cultivation was too weak to notice it, unless the evil spirits started acting up right then and there. Taoist Master Wu quizzed them about their experiences that night, and they told him everything in detail, but he still couldn't find anything. He gave up for now. Before leaving, he said to call if anything happened and that he'd be staying in the city. After he left, Wang Zhiyuan insisted Shiqing and Li Jiejun stay for dinner. Only the three of them were at the table. Wang's father had to leave on company business, so they chatted as they ate. Wang Zhiyuan did most of the talking, going over the weird things he'd experienced and the master's reaction. Finally, he switched gears and asked Shiqing and Li Jiejun, "Have you guys talked to Qianqian lately?" Shiqing and Li Jiejun both said yes. Shiqing did it to avoid getting too involved with the heroine. Su Qianqian didn't initially know Mo Cheng caused their deaths in the original story. She considered them her friends. She only found out 3 years into her relationship with Mo Cheng. By then, she was deeply in love. Knowing the truth was painful. She was torn between friendship and love. Finally, after the Heavenly Master families almost killed Mo Cheng, she chose to forgive him. The dead are gone, and the living are like this. She ultimately followed her heart, let go of everything, and lived happily with Mo Cheng. The original owner and his friends died because of her. But in his wish, the original owner didn't blame her, but only asked that his 2 friends and the Gao family be protected, and Mo Cheng be killed. So after Shi arrived, he gradually cut off contact with her. Li Jiejun was shaken by what happened and didn't feel like thinking about anything else, so he hadn't contacted Su Qianqian either. Seeing his 2 buddies had also forgotten about Su Qianqian made Wang Zhiyuan a little awkward. "Hey, why don't we invite her out sometime? I haven't seen her in days." "Sure," Li Jiejun said. Shi didn't mind either way, and so, a few days later, Shi once again crossed paths with Su Qianqian and Mo Cheng. Chapter 54 Canon Fodder Male Supporting Role in a Strange World 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In a private room at a barbecue joint, Shi, Wang Zhiyuan, Li Jiejun, and Su Qianqian were chowing down and having a blast. The atmosphere was great, except for Mo Cheng, who was standing right behind Su Qianqian. He was gazing at her with this super tender look in his eyes, but when he glanced at Shi and the others, his eyes turned ice cold. Total Jekyll and Hyde, Shi just rolled with it, ignoring the split personality and chatting with the others. "So, Qianqian, what have you been up to lately?" Wang Zhiyuan asked between bites. "Shopping, hanging out, you know. School's still a couple of weeks away, gotta enjoy the freedom while I can. What about you guys?" She replied casually, thinking about the past few days. Mo Cheng popped into her head. That guy with the cold face but a surprisingly gentle side, she'd been running into him everywhere. It was weird. She shook her head, trying to clear him from her mind, then she noticed the looks on the others' faces. Wang Zhiyuan and the guys had been MIA for a while. Had they been ditching her? She gave them a suspicious look. "Where have you 3 been sneaking off to? Got any secrets? And why didn't you invite me?" "Nowhere. We've just been chilling at home," Li Jiejun said. He'd been a wreck since that night. "Didn't even want to leave the house." Su Qianqian was surprised. "Seriously?" She studied each of them. "Seriously," Shi confirmed. "So, are we still going to Y City?" As soon as she mentioned Y City, Wang Zhiyuan waved his hands like crazy. "Nope. Trip's off." Li Jiejun was just as opposed. "No way, no way. They just had a brush with the paranormal. No way were they going back to a creepy place like that." Shi was amused by their reactions. They were totally spooked. Once bitten, twice shy, and all that, good for them. In a world with ghosts, you don't want to tempt fate. Su Qianqian was surprised the trip was cancelled. Why? What gives? That they've been planning that Y City trip forever. It wasn't easy finding a remote, abandoned place like that. Qianqian, that place gives me the creeps. Didn't people say it was cursed or something? Let's skip it, Li Jiejun mumbled. Yeah, because he knew there were actually ghosts. But he couldn't exactly tell her that. It would freak her out. Su Qianqian was speechless. Seriously? We've been to way creepier places than that. Still, we're not going. There are tons of fun places. Why go all the way out there? Wang Zhiyuan said. Fine, whatever. Just remember to hit me up next time you guys make plans. Definitely. They chatted about other stuff, Shi mostly listening in. The vibe was pretty chill. Behind Su Qianqian, Mo Cheng was scowling, a dark energy radiating off him. He was seriously ticked off. How could Qianqian be so happy talking to other guys? She was his, and his alone. These three were so annoying, he wished they'd just disappear, and he was ready to make it happen. Back in the day, he was a prince, commanding armies. Now he was a fierce ghost, a ghost king. Nobody made him this unhappy. His dark aura swirled around him as he focused his power on the three. He didn't know why the ghosts he'd sent to mess with them hadn't done the trick. Fine, he'd take care of it himself. Judging by his expression, he was aiming to kill them. Shi watched, stone-faced, making no move to intervene. Mo Qing might be a ghost king, but the talismans Wang Zhiyuan and Li Jiejun had were from Shi's old world. The evil energy couldn't touch them. Sure enough, as the dark energy reached the two, it just faded away, leaving them completely unaffected. What the heck? Mo Qing was stunned. How was that possible? Did they have some kind of magic protection? He was a ghost king. What could block his power? He racked his brain, trying to figure out which family of exorcists they were connected to. Shi saw Mo Chang's confusion and guessed what he was thinking. Let him stew. Give him something to focus on other than obsessing over Su Qianqian and plotting their demise. Mo Qing kept mulling over what could be blocking his ghost king energy, even after they all parted ways. He was clueless. Shi went home and got back to training. Even though they hadn't talked Su Qianqian out of seeing Mo Qing, like in the original story, he still wanted to kill them. He had to get stronger, and fast, to fulfill the original owner's wish. Mo Qing was a ghost king. Shi had plenty of magical items in his space that could take him down. But the original plot mentioned a sword, a cursed weapon. That sword was what prevented him from reincarnating and turned him into a ghost king. Shi wasn't strong enough yet. If he attacked recklessly and failed, Mo Qing could escape, and that would be a disaster. With that sword in the mix, Shi wasn't confident he could finish him off in one shot. So, he had to play it safe. That was why he was training so hard. Once his power was up to snuff, dealing with Mo Qing would be a lot easier. After that barbecue incident, Shi stayed home, training every day. His parents, who were used to him running off all the time, thought something was wrong and kept asking him about it. Shi didn't tell them about the ghost he'd encountered. He could handle it, and telling them would only make them worry. Wang Zhiyuan's dad knew about it, but since the kids were okay and Wang's mom was traveling, he kept it quiet. So, Shi's parents were still in the dark. Shi spent his days training and occasionally met up with Wang Zhiyuan and the others. During that time, the Li family's hired exorcist showed up. Shi went to see him, but just like the previous Taoist master, he couldn't see anything. Since two big-shot Taoist masters couldn't find anything wrong, Wang's dad and the Lis were still worried for a while. But when they saw their sons were fine, they relaxed a bit. Wang Zhiyuan and Li Jiejun's initial fear faded over time, but their adventurous spirit was gone for good. Mo Qing didn't make any more moves, and things were quiet for Shi until the first day of school. Chapter 55 Canon Fodder Male Supporting Role in a Strange World 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The original owner and Wang Zhiyuan are both college juniors. In the original story, they were plagued by minor ghosts, constantly distracted and unfocused, which led to them temporarily dropping out of school. Now, thanks to Shi's involvement, they're all enrolling as planned when classes start. Meanwhile, Shi has consistently cultivated and reached the mid-foundation building stage, but that's not enough. To take on a ghost king like Mo Qing, he'd need to be at least in the late-stage golden core realm. Plus, Mo Qing isn't just any ghost king, he wields a killer weapon, making him far more powerful than others of his kind. That's a big reason why he managed to escape unscathed when those powerful celestial master families tried to take him down, because Mo Qing already had it out for them. Even if his attention was later diverted by something strange about them, if Wang Zhiyuan and the others were to hang out with Su Qianqian a few more times, acting all friendly, laughing and having fun, there's no telling if he'd try something again. So, with Shi's subtle guidance, Wang Zhiyuan and Li Jiejun haven't been meeting up with Su Qianqian privately. The day before classes, Shi went to the original owner's apartment near campus in the afternoon. The original owner, Wang Zhiyuan, Li Jiejun, and Su Qianqian each have their own places in the same apartment complex, which is close to school. Usually, they show up the day before classes start. When Shi arrived, Wang Zhiyuan was already there. The apartment building had 2 units on the first floor, and he and Shi were across from each other. His door was open, and he happily called out when he saw Shi. "Jiayu, you made it. Yep. Noticing he was all unpacked, Shirqing asked, when did you get here? Just a little while ago. Jejun's here too. Qianqian's the only one who hasn't shown up yet, Wang Zhiyuan said. Shirqing hummed. Su Qianqian was busy getting all lovey-dovey with Mo Cheng. She was caught up in those early feelings, so it wasn't a shock that she wasn't there yet. I'm starving. Let's grab some food later, Wang Zhiyuan suggested. Sounds good. Shirqing went inside. The apartment was cleaned regularly, so it was spotless. He quickly unpacked his stuff. When he came back out, Li Jiejun had arrived and was talking to Wang Zhiyuan at the door. Seeing Shirqing ready, Wang Zhiyuan said, I heard a new place opened up on the street by the school. They say it's amazing. Let's check it out. Alright, Shirqing and Li Jiejun replied. Isn't Qianqian coming? Shirqing asked. Even though he'd made sure they hadn't crossed paths lately, it was strange that Wang Zhiyuan and the others didn't ask her this time. She said she's just going straight to school tomorrow and then coming back here. She won't be around today. Okay, let's go then. Perfect, he thought, one less problem to deal with. That they headed to the restaurant Wang Zhiyuan mentioned. It was packed. Luckily, Wang Zhiyuan had made a reservation, so they were seated right away. When the food arrived, their eyes widened. It hadn't been open long, but the food was seriously delicious and the dishes were well done. They enjoyed the meal, and as they left their booth, Shirqing spotted Mo Cheng. As a ghost king, Mo Cheng now had a physical form, appearing just like an ordinary person. He walked toward Shirqing and his friends. Shirqing paused for a moment, then acted like nothing happened and passed him by with Wang Zhiyuan and Li Jiejun. If Mo Cheng was here, Su Qianqian was probably close by. Sure enough, a quick scan confirmed that Su Qianqian was in a private room, looking bored and fiddling with her phone. She hadn't ordered yet, likely waiting for Mo Cheng. Ignoring them, Shirqing left with Wang Zhiyuan and Li Jiejun. Inside the private room, Su Qianqian was getting restless. Mo Cheng had invited her out, but he was a no-show. What was that about? She thought he wanted to discuss something important. Things had gotten a little flirty between them lately. They weren't exactly dating, but they were closer than friends. She wasn't sure how he felt about it. She started to feel a little down. She didn't know if she liked Mo Cheng, but the way she felt around him was totally different from how she felt around Gao Jiayu and the others. She couldn't quite put her finger on it. Just as Su Qianqian was lost in thought, Mo Cheng walked in. His stern expression softened when he saw Su Qianqian, and he smiled slowly. Su Qianqian's heart skipped a beat at his melting smile. You're here. Yeah, sorry for the wait. It's okay, I just got here myself, Su Qianqian replied, blushing. Seeing her blushing and fibbing, Mo Cheng couldn't help but smile. She was so cute. Thinking about what made him late, anger rose in his heart. He would make those people pay. When he saw the woman in front of him, the violence in his heart calmed down a bit. He picked up the menu and asked, what do you want to eat? Anything is fine. Mo Cheng smiled, then I'll just order. Okay. Mo Cheng ordered, choosing all of Su Qianqian's favorites. She was touched and felt butterflies in her stomach. She blushed and asked, how did you know I liked all this? I secretly took notes last time. Oh. Mo Cheng spent the evening with Su Qianqian. They had dinner and went to a movie, and then he dropped her off at home. Meanwhile, on the way back, Shirqing noticed someone suspicious. A man in casual clothes, wearing a baseball cap that hid most of his face, was following them. He was a foundation-building cultivator, not very old, probably in his early 20s, like the original owner of the body. At that age, he was considered a prodigy in this world. Shirqing took a closer look and saw the baby face hidden under the cap. The original owner remembered him, from the Zhou family, a well-known celestial master family. In the original storyline, he was supposed to show up around this time. When the original owner was being haunted by a minor ghost, he had come to Gao's house to investigate. So Shirqing wasn't surprised to see him. He must have been after Mo Cheng. Mo Cheng had killed an ancestor of the Zhou family 2 centuries ago, and although multiple celestial masters from the Zhou, Chen, Lin, and Jin families had tried to take him down, they failed. Eventually, they sealed him away in a deserted area that was near the abandoned building where Shi had first arrived, but over time, the formation was damaged, and the talisman papers had weakened. By the time the original owner and his friends stumbled upon the place, Mo Cheng had already broken free. Chapter 56 Canon Fodder Male Supporting Role in a Strange World 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shi Qing watched the guy from the Zhou family ride the elevator with them up to Su Qianqian's floor. He must have figured out Mo Cheng and Su Qianqian were tight and came snooping around. As one of the top Tianchi families, the Zhou guy definitely had a few tricks up his sleeve, some way to protect himself. Shi Qing shrugged him off and went back to practice, up on the 21st floor. Zhou Xiyuan stepped out of the elevator, walked to the door on the right, punched in a code, and went. Inside, he'd been sent to City A to investigate the Ghost King's escape. Mo Cheng was known to be a brutal, bloodthirsty monster. 200 years ago, he'd been sealed away in City A, giving the world 2 centuries of peace. Since Mo Cheng's lockup, even the smaller ghosts had been better behaved, but a few months back, ghosts from all over started gathering. Someone noticed and reported it. They sent people to check it out and discovered the Ghost King had busted out. The place where they'd sealed the Ghost King used to be guarded, but that family died in an accident. So, nobody noticed the seal was broken for decades, not until the Ghost King finally broke free. With Mo Cheng loose, chaos was bound to follow. The major Tianchi family started hunting for him, but he seemed to have vanished. They'd been in City A for over a week, coming up empty. But finally, a lucky break. A few days earlier, Zhou Xiyuan was walking by when a girl passed him, and the tracking array he was carrying went off. The array picked up a trace of Mo Cheng's scent. After checking multiple times, Zhou Xiyuan confirmed that the girl was the source. She had Mo Cheng's aura. To find Mo Cheng, they started tracking her. A few days of that, and they found out Mo Cheng was pretending to be human to trick her. Her name was Su Qianqian, daughter of the Su family. She'd had no connection to Mo Cheng before, but he'd been following her since he escaped. Hard to believe, but the Ghost King was clearly treating her differently. And she seemed to be falling for him too. After talking it over, they decided she had to be connected to Mo Cheng somehow, and she was their best lead. That's why he was there, hoping to talk to her and figure out what was going on. They'd found out that Mo Cheng was always around her. So, to get him away from her, they ganged up and took a shot at him. Mo Cheng was hurt and had to be licking his wounds. He wouldn't be around her for a few days. The afternoon of the second day, Zhou Xiyuan heard someone outside. He quickly opened the door and caught Su Qianqian just as she was about to head inside. "Hey, Miss Su." Su Qianqian looked at the unfamiliar guy, confused. "Who are you?" "Name's Zhou Xiyuan. Gotta talk to you about something." "Got a minute?" Seeing the harmless-looking baby face, Su Qianqian wasn't scared. "Sure," she said. At the coffee shop, Su Qianqian looked at the cute guy across from her and asked, "What's this about?" "Can I ask how you know Mo Cheng?" Su Qianqian was surprised to hear Mo Cheng's name. "You know Mo Cheng?" "Yeah. Why are you asking about him?" Su Qianqian got a little suspicious. Could this guy be an enemy of Mo Cheng's? Seeing her guarded expression, Zhou Xiyuan made something up. "Just curious. I'm a friend of his. He hasn't been home in ages, and his folks are worried sick. He's a pretty closed-off guy, you know that after hanging out with him, but he seems to like you." That put Su Qianqian at ease, but she was also a little embarrassed. "Mo Cheng and I met by chance. A few friends and I were exploring an abandoned building when..." After hearing how Su Qianqian and Mo Cheng met, Zhou Xiyuan didn't know how to drop the bomb about Mo Cheng's real identity. From what she said, she thought Mo Cheng was a good guy. What would she think if she knew he wasn't even human? He hesitated, then said, "Miss Su, are you aware that Mo Cheng isn't human?" Su Qianqian was stunned, then got angry. "What are you saying? If he's not human, what is he, a ghost?" "Actually, he is," Zhou Xiyuan said. dead serious. Su Qianqian didn't buy it for a second. She was fuming. This guy with the baby face and pretty eyes was just making stuff up, and something nobody would believe. What are you talking about? You're no friend of Mo Cheng's. He'd never be friends with someone like you. Just go. I'm done talking. Zhou Siyuan saw her reaction and knew she wasn't ready to hear it. But he kept going. It's true. Think about the stuff you've done together. Maybe you'll see what I mean. I don't want to hear your garbage. If you don't leave, I will. Su Qianqian started to get up. Wait, don't freak out. I'm going. Here, this is a truth talisman. If you don't believe me, hold it the next time you see Mo Cheng. When you look at him, you'll see him for who he really is. Zhou Siyuan was worried about her going out so upset. So, he put the talisman on the table and left. Su Qianqian looked at the talisman, hesitated, and slipped it into her pocket. She didn't believe Mo Cheng wasn't human. But what the baby-faced guy said did make her wonder. Su Qianqian was struggling, and Shirqing was watching her live stream with the system. Think she'll use the talisman? Yep, Shirqing said, confident. Why? Thought she believed Mo Cheng. She's had doubts ever since she pocketed that talisman. Mo Cheng showing up in her life was too convenient. After being warned, she'd started to wonder. Now that she was wondering, she had to know for sure. In the original story, when Mo Cheng revealed himself, Su Qianqian had trouble believing it at first, but she got over it. After all, Mo Cheng mostly acted human. Plus, he was good-looking and treated her like gold. It didn't matter that he wasn't human, but this was different. After seeing his real face with the talisman, would she still be okay with Mo Cheng? I'm looking forward to finding out. Chapter 57 Canon Fodder Male Supporting Role in a Strange World 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Since that day, Su Qianqian had been spacing out for days. Once she'd calmed down, she replayed her first meeting with Mo Cheng and the ones that followed, realizing they were way too convenient. That first time, they were in the middle of nowhere. She was lost, and he just happened to show up. And the other times? Always a chance encounter. Almost every time she stepped outside. Then there was the baby-faced kid living across the hall. She'd bumped into him a bunch too, and he didn't strike her as someone who'd make stuff up. She was totally confused. And why hadn't Mo Cheng called? Shirqing noticed Su Qianqian was off, worried, and never hung out anymore. Except for class, she just stared at her phone, a million miles away. Knowing why she was acting like that, Shirqing let it go. Shirqing, Wang Zhiyuan, and Li Jiejun went to class, grabbed food, hung out, and practiced like always. Meanwhile, deep inside a dark cave, Mo Cheng sat cross-legged, eyes shut, soaking up all the energy around him. A steady stream of dark energy and bloody vibes poured in, making his spirit stronger and darker. A week later, after absorbing every last bit, Mo Cheng finally opened his eyes. Dark red eyes took in the scene, cold as ice, before slowly turning back to black. Finally back, Mo Cheng narrowed his eyes, turned into smoke, and vanished. A week later, Su Qianqian finally got a text from Mo Cheng. He'd ghosted her for days, ignoring her texts. Now he was asking her to meet up. She stared at the message, stunned, then texted back, okay. In a private room at a fancy restaurant, Su Qianqian looked across the table at Mo Cheng's serious face and complained, "Where have you been? Why didn't you answer me?" "Sorry, I was out of town. No signal where I was, so I missed your texts." "Oh. Okay." After a few more sentences, Su Qianqian looked at Mo Cheng, hesitant. He saw her and asked, "What's up?" He'd been healing from the beating those celestial masters gave him before he met her last time. What was wrong with Qianqian? Nothing, nothing. Seeing his concern, Su Qianqian quickly backed down. She'd almost let some stranger's words make her doubt Mo Cheng, who'd been so good to her. That was messed up. She looked him over. He seemed like a normal guy. A little cold, maybe, but definitely human. They finished dinner, and Mo Ching drove her home like always. When they got to her place, Mo Ching glanced to the right and frowned. Su Qianqian didn't notice. Before she went inside, she turned to the tall, handsome Mo Ching and asked, a little embarrassed, "So, what are we?" Mo Ching was still focused on the corner. He turned back, his eyes deep, and said casually, "Friends." "Right. Friends." Su Qianqian sounded disappointed, seeing her face fall. Missouri Ching felt like crap. He'd wanted to confess the last time they hung out. He'd finally found her and worked so hard to connect with her, all to be with her, but then the Zhou family showed up, ambushing him and ruining everything. He'd been too hurt, and too late. He'd had to ditch the confession, and now, he was lying. But what else could he do? If he told the truth, those guys would come after Qianqian. If those celestial masters knew how he felt about her, they'd use her as leverage. That would suck for both of them. Mo Ching watched Su Qianqian say goodbye with a fake smile, then teleported to that corner as soon as she was gone. Looking at the familiar faces, he sneered, "You guys are persistent." As soon as he finished, a wave of dark energy slammed into them. Zhou Siyuan and his buddies saw he was out for blood and pulled out their weapons to defend themselves. "You're the one with the problem," a skinny guy spat. "What are you trying to pull, messing with that girl? That's none of your business, and you're way out of your league." Mo Ching unleashed dark energy and pure evil, swallowing them whole. The guys looked grim. Zhou Siyuan grabbed the exorcism mirror. Seeing the mirror gave the others a boost of confidence. The exorcism mirror was a Zhou family heirloom. Ordinary ghosts were dust if they touched it. It wouldn't work quite as well on a ghost king like Mo Ching, but it would weaken him. It was the mirror that let them hurt him last time. Mo Cheng's eyes narrowed when he saw it. He'd been rushing to see Qianqian last time, not paying attention, and that stupid little mirror caught him off guard. He got hurt bad. That mirror really messed with him. Mo Ching attacked, and the fight was on. Black energy surged, spiritual power flashed, and magic items glowed white. One of the guys set up a formation, but managed to keep it low-key. Mo Cheng was a seriously powerful ghost king. Zhou Siyuan used numbers and the mirror to barely hold his own. Shi Qing watched from the shadows, checking out Mo Cheng's strength. The 5 guys attacking him included 2 Jindan stage and 3 foundation building cultivators. They were strong, and they had tons of magic items. Of course, the mirror was the biggest problem for Mo Cheng. Shi Qing saw Mo Cheng getting his butt kicked. He was surrounded and finally pulled out his signature sword. Thick, bloody energy gathered into a sword shape. Mo Cheng's eyes went blood red when he grabbed the hilt. His murderous aura was too intense, and he couldn't always control it, so he usually kept the sword hidden. Now, seeing it out, Shi Qing got a good look. The blade was black, with a faint bloody glow that felt wrong. With the sword, Mo Cheng was 10 times stronger. The guys were on the defensive. Just as Mo Cheng stabbed a foundation building guy, Shi Qing stepped in to help. Mo Cheng's sword hit something, and the guy scrambled to safety. "Who's there?" Mo Cheng spun around, red eyes blazing. He saw a cultivator walking towards him. Chapter 58 Canon Fodder Male Supporting Role in a Strange World 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. An older guy, maybe in his 50s or 60s, showed up practically out of nowhere. He looked like he was strolling, but one second he was there and the next he was right in Mo Cheng's face. Mo Cheng, realizing the guy was just a foundation building cultivator, sneered. "You got a death wish?" Then he went for the old man with his sword. The old man, Shi Qing, saw the sword coming, sidestepped it, and pulled out a stack of talisman paper from his personal space, throwing it right at Mo Cheng. Mo Cheng saw the talismans heading his way and felt a shot of fear. He had no choice but to raise his sword to block them. The talisman paper exploded against Mo Cheng in a flurry of crackling sounds. Zhou Siyuan and his crew just stood there, mouths open. Shi Qing looked at the stunned group and told them, "Get out of here, now." "Okay, thanks." They figured the old guy must have a way out, so they scattered and ran. Shi Qing, while Mo Cheng was busy dealing with the talismans, took the opportunity to sneak away before Mo Cheng could react. He quickly made it back to his nearby apartment, transforming back into ordinary, everyday Gao Jiayu. By the time the last of the talismans went off in front of him, Mo Cheng was badly hurt. those talismans packed a serious punch, but thankfully his sword had absorbed a lot of the damage. When he finally gathered his wits, he saw the place was empty. Everyone was gone. He was beyond pissed. That cultivator was just foundation building level. How did he have so many powerful talismans? Where did he even get them? After all these years, have those guys gotten that strong? Mo-Ching was stumped, but right now, patching himself up was priority one. Summoning the sword had drained a ton of his energy, and then the talisman attack on top of that. He needed a place to recover, and fast. He and those heavenly masters were locked in a death struggle, and they weren't about to let him off easy. He had to get himself into top shape to deal with them. Mo-Ching glanced toward Su Qianqian's place. He'd been planning to sneak back in with her, but now he'd have to split again. He turned into smoke and vanished, so, right after meeting Su Qianqian, Mo-Ching had to bail to find a place to recover, heal up, and get his strength back. Zhou Xiyuan and the others, after running in every direction, managed to regroup within a few hours. Who was that guy? Someone asked. Everyone looked around, but nobody said anything. You don't know him? Asked a Jindan stage cultivator from the Jin family. Nope, they all said at once, then exchanged glances. They'd never seen the guy before, and had assumed he was backup for someone, but now it seemed none of them knew him. Even though he was just foundation building level, the talismans he had were clearly the real deal. If he hadn't shown up when he did, they'd probably be toast. They had underestimated Mo-Cheng's strength, and that sword. That sword was insane. No wonder several ancestors joining forces couldn't take him down 200 years ago. After talking it over, they decided to ask their family's ancestors to come out of retirement and deal with Mo-Cheng together. 2 days later, Shi stood on the hilltop where Mo-Cheng was healing, using his spiritual sense to pinpoint his exact location. He asked the system in his head, "What do you think? Should I go in and take him out right now?" "Go for it," the system cheered, but then Shi hesitated. "Nah, his 1,000-year love story hasn't even gotten off the ground yet. I can't be the guy who breaks them up." Shi thought about the original plot, where Mo-Cheng and Su Qianqian eventually overcame everything and got together. It felt too easy to just kill him now. The original story at least revolved around the whole Mo-Cheng and Su Qianqian love thing, and the original owner died because of it. Right now, Mo-Cheng and Su Qianqian hadn't even admitted their feelings, so killing him now felt too soon. Plus, he was about to break through to golden elixir level himself. Dealing with Mo-Cheng then wouldn't be a problem. He'd give Mo-Cheng some more time to work through his 1,000-year obsession, at least let him die without regrets. He was such a nice guy. Thinking this, Shi left a magical artifact there and strolled away. System. The system looked at the artifact the host had left, scanned it, and finally understood why its host had suddenly gotten so indecisive. "You're such a nice guy," it echoed. Meanwhile, Su Qianqian, after Mo-Cheng had said they were just friends, had been trying to cut contact. She wasn't exactly hurting for friends, but when Mo-Cheng disappeared again, she felt this emptiness inside. She didn't answer her phone or reply to messages, and then she remembered that Mo-Cheng had always been the one to reach out. She had no idea where he lived or what his situation was. If he didn't contact her, she had no way to find him. Su Qianqian was down in the dumps every day. She realized she'd fallen for Mo-Cheng, even though she didn't know much about him. Shi would check in on Su Qianqian now and then, watching her go from lively and cute to all moody. He finally understood why, in the original story, she was able to forgive Mo-Cheng for hurting the original owner and Wang Zhiyuan. Su Qianqian seemed to be a total sucker for love. About 2 weeks flew by, and Shi finally broke through to golden elixir. At the same time, Mo-Cheng's injuries were healing, and the reinforcements Zhou Xiyuan had called in had arrived. "Hello, ancestor," Zhou Xiyuan said respectfully, looking at the middle-aged man getting out of the car. The man nodded. "All right, tell me what happened that day." Zhou Xiyuan told him everything, and the man looked puzzled. "You're saying someone saved you, and it was just a foundation-building cultivator?" "Yes, but he had some seriously powerful talisman paper." The man frowned. He knew a few foundation-building cultivators in their 50s and 60s, but none of them fit Zhou Xiyuan's description. he gave up trying to figure it out. He looked at Zhou Xiyuan. I've got it. The Chen, Lin, and Jean families should be here soon. You don't have to worry. Okay. Looking at Zhou Xiyuan's respectful and polite demeanor, the Zhou family ancestor nodded. Zhou Xiyuan was the most talented kid of this generation. A real family asset. They had been training him hard since he was little. He was still young, and his cultivation still wasn't all that high, but he could hold his own. The people from the major Tianxia families gathered and made plans to take down Mo Cheng. Mo Cheng, having recovered, sensed them closing in and went into hiding. Shi Qing saw how tense things were getting, and noticed how distracted Su Qianqian had been. He decided to give the lovebirds a little push, so, Su Qianqian finally got a message from Mo Cheng. When she saw the short sentence on her phone, she almost burst into tears. Chapter 59 Canon Fodder Male Supporting Role in a Strange World 10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ma Cheng, are you there? Su Qianqian called out, a little hesitant, as she stood in front of the clearly abandoned house. The doors stayed shut, no response came. Su Qianqian checked her phone. The address matched. Taking a deep breath, she knocked. Ma Cheng, it's Su Qianqian. Are you home? Ma Cheng heard the familiar voice and thought he was dreaming. He instantly appeared at the door and saw Qianqian standing there. But why was she here? He frowned at the weed-choked yard and quickly used a spell to open the door. Qianqian, what are you doing here? Seeing Ma Cheng, Su Qianqian felt a surge of relief. I came to find you. Where did you disappear to? I was so worried something happened. Nothing happened. I just had some things to take care of, so I was busy and didn't get in touch. Is there anything I can do to help? Su Qianqian asked immediately. No, it's all taken care of. I didn't mean to worry you. Okay. Su Qianqian looked around at the desolate surroundings, confused. Why are you living way out here? Mo Cheng saw her puzzled expression. It's a long story. Want to come in? Sure. Su Qianqian followed Mo Cheng inside. She expected the inside to be as overgrown as the outside, but to her surprise, it was clean and tidy. They went inside and sat down. She looked at Mo Cheng, ready to ask where they stood. He was always so on again, off again with her. Did he even like her? She'd decided that no matter what, she was going to tell him how she felt, but just as she looked at Mo Cheng and was about to speak, she saw it. Half his face was rotting. Su Qianqian gasped, nearly falling off her seat. She rubbed her eyes, thinking she must be seeing things, but the horrifying image was still there. Ah! Mo Cheng looked at Su Qianqian, who'd suddenly jumped up, confused. Qianqian, what's wrong? You, don't come any closer. Su Qianqian suddenly remembered what the kid with the baby face had said. Could it be Ma Cheng really wasn't human? But how could he not be? Su Qianqian stared at Mo Cheng, only half his face normal, looking at her with concern, and felt a wave of terror and confusion. I just remembered I have something I have to do. I gotta go. Mo Cheng noticed something was off about Su Qianqian, so he didn't try to stop her. He watched her leave like she was being chased, his eyes dark. Su Qianqian didn't stop until she was far away. As soon as the tension broke, her legs gave out, and she collapsed on the ground. Thinking about it now, it all seemed unreal. Mo Cheng really was weird. Maybe he really wasn't human. After catching her breath, Su Qianqian drove home. Shi Qing watched their disastrous encounter and sighed. Now Su Qianqian had seen Ma Cheng's true, horrific face. All the dreamy feelings were gone, replaced by fear. Su Qianqian locked herself in her room and thought about it for a day. The next day, she knocked on the door next door. Miss Su. What can I do for you? Zhou Xiyuan looked surprised. Ever since that incident, Su Qianqian acted like she didn't even see him. Why was she knocking on his door? Su Qianqian didn't answer, but asked, Can I come in and talk? Sure, come on in. Zhou Siyuan opened the door and let her in. Su Qianshan noticed another person in the living room. She felt awkward. Zhou Siyuan introduced him, "This is my grandfather." Su Qianshan looked at the man, who looked maybe 40 or 50, surprised, but still polite. "Hello." "Hello," said the Zhou family ancestor. He studied the young woman. Zhou Siyuan had told him that she'd been in contact with the ghost king Macheng, and that their relationship seemed complicated. Now that he saw her in person, as expected, the girl had a faint yin aura, probably because she'd just been around a ghost. Su Qianshan looked at Zhou Siyuan. "Can we talk alone?" "Of course, come this way." Zhou Siyuan led Su Qianshan to his study. "You said before that Macheng wasn't human, that he was a ghost. Is that true?" "It's true. Macheng is the ghost king." "Miss Su, I don't know why Macheng is bothering you and hasn't hurt you, but he's naturally violent and bloodthirsty. He's not a good ghost. You shouldn't have much contact with him." Hearing Zhou Siyuan say that left Su Qianshan feeling conflicted. Deep down, she believed it. "How can you prove what you're saying is true?" "I forgot to mention, Miss Su, that I'm a heavenly master." "A heavenly master?" Su Qianshan had suspected it for a while, and hearing him say it confirmed her guess. "Yes. I'm from the Zhou family, a family of heavenly masters. I've been ordered to capture Macheng." "What will you do to Macheng?" Su Qianshan asked without thinking. The person who had been so gentle with her wasn't even human. It left her feeling strange. "We will deal with him." Hearing that made Su Qianshan feel a little sick. After saying goodbye to Zhou Siyuan, she went back to her room and saw the toy bear on her bedside table. She felt so mixed up. Macheng had given it to her when they were walking past a stall after grabbing a bite. Now, the sweet, fluttering feeling she'd had seemed far away. She stuffed the bear into the closet and lay on the bed, lost in thought. Shirqing watched Su Qianshan's every move, at a loss for words. The magic tool he placed in Macheng's healing spot was the key to Su Qianshan seeing Macheng like that. He'd wanted Su Qianshan to use the truth talisman, but he didn't know how long that would take, so he let her see Macheng's true form early and make a decision, but Su Qianshan's first reaction was fear. Then she ran. Part of the reason she accepted Macheng in the original story was because he was attractive, not scary. People are visual creatures, after all. After confirming Macheng's identity, Su Qianshan decided not to associate with him. People and ghosts were just too different. Macheng was busy hiding and didn't contact her. Su Qianshan felt relieved but also bummed out. It was her first crush. She was about to tell him how she felt, but then she realized he wasn't even human. And she had no idea why he was even talking to her. She felt like her heart was broken and felt miserable. Realizing she hadn't talked to Gao Jiayu and the others in a while, she pulled out her phone and called Gao Jiayu. "Gao Jiayu, I'm heartbroken." Shirqing just picked up the phone and heard that, and was left speechless. She and Macheng hadn't even become official yet. Chapter 60 Canon Fodder Male Supporting Role in a Strange World 11. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Since then, Su Qianshan has been hanging out with Shirqing and the gang again, just like old times. Wang Zhiyuan and Li Jiajun were clueless about what happened. All they knew was she was hurting, but she wouldn't say what was wrong no matter how much they pressed her. With Mo Qing out of the picture, Shirqing wasn't about to stop Wang Zhiyuan and Li Jiajun from being around her. Su Qianshan slowly started to bounce back after being bummed out for a while. Little did Mo Qing know, the girl he'd been chasing for so long had slipped right through his fingers. Meanwhile, he was holed up in the middle of nowhere. Mo Chang's face was dark as he listened to the little ghost stammer out the latest news about the Tianshi. He was seriously bummed. They couldn't kill him, but they sure knew how to make his life miserable. He'd been offing them for 1,000 years, but they just kept coming. Back when he was a lone wolf, it wasn't a big deal, but now that he'd found Qianshan, he had something to lose, something to protect. Seeing the little ghost shaking like a leaf, Mo Qing waved him off, annoyed. "Get out of here." "Yes, Ghost King," the little ghost squeaked, disappearing faster than a speeding bullet. Mo Qing gazed at the deserted mountains, his mind drifting back to Su Qianshan and 1,000 years ago. Back then, she was a sweet, adorable girl, and they were inseparable growing up. Before he went off to war, they promised each other that if he came back safe and sound, they'd get married. The battlefield was a meat grinder, and he barely made it back alive, but he pulled through and couldn't wait to get home. But when he finally arrived, everything had changed. Xuanhuan had died from some illness, and they were ripped apart forever, but now, 1,000 years later, he'd found her again. But thinking about their last awkward encounter, Mo Cheng's brow furrowed. How did she know where I was? That's weird. She showed up like she knew exactly where I was, even though she shouldn't, and the way she bolted out of there, looking all freaked out, something was definitely up. And he couldn't reach her since then. Mo Cheng snapped his fingers, summoning another little ghost. A pale, shivering little ghost floated over. What do you need, Ghost King? Head over to City A and deliver a message for me. While Mo Cheng was hiding out in the hills, Zhou Xiyuan and the others were in City A, empty-handed. One night, Shirqing got a call from his mom, telling him to come home right away, sounding kinda urgent. He thought something was wrong and rushed over. Turns out, Mom was fine, but Shirqing found Zhou Xiyuan and some old guy he'd never seen before, the Zhou family's ancestor. Jiayu, say hi to your great-grandpa. Shirqing was stunned. According to Mom, this old dude was his great-grandpa. They weren't even related. Hi, great-grandpa, Shirqing said anyway, trying to be polite. Haven't seen Jiayu in ages. He's grown so much, the Zhou family ancestor chuckled. You're telling me, he's a new kid every year. Xiyuan shot up too, Mom said, smiling. Then she told Shirqing, this is your cousin, just a few months older than you. Show him around while he's here. Sure, Shirqing said, calling Zhou Xiyuan cousin. After the awkward greetings, the two Zhou family members were settled in at Shirqing's place. In the original storyline, Shirqing never knew Zhou Xiyuan was his cousin. Why all of a sudden? Shirqing was seriously confused. He asked his mom and found out that the Zhou family ancestor was Mom's dad's sworn brother. In the original story, this ancestor never visited. And Zhou Xiyuan, being younger, shouldn't have even known about this connection. The next day was Saturday, and Mom told Shirqing to take his cousin Zhou Xiyuan out. So Shirqing took him to the private hangout he'd set up with Wang Zhiyuan and Li Jiejun. Since Su Qianqian had been MIA for a while, they didn't invite her this time. When Shirqing and Zhou Xiyuan arrived, Wang Zhiyuan and Li Jiejun were already there. They were surprised to see Shirqing bringing a stranger. Shirqing introduced them. This is my cousin, Zhou Xiyuan. The guys saw that Gao Jiayu's cousin had a baby face and looked even younger than them, but he also seemed pretty serious and stern, so they all called him cousin. Zhou Xiyuan saw the two were acting a little awkward, so he smiled and said hello. Shirqing was amused. Zhou Xiyuan clearly had them intimidated. He looked harmless enough. Turned out, Zhou Xiyuan was a cool guy. He was as friendly as he looked. By the end of lunch, Wang Zhiyuan and Li Jiejun were chattering away with him like he was their own flesh and blood. Shirqing was having a blast. In the afternoon, they went to a farm, caught some fish, and had a blast. They came back in the evening, exhausted but happy. Meanwhile, Su Qianqian was scared half to death. That night, Su Qianqian was bored, scrolling through her phone. Suddenly, black fog appeared in the corner of her wall. She jumped out of her skin. Looking closer, the black fog turned into a person. Su Qianqian screamed bloody murder. Her scream was deafening, but the high-end apartment had great sound insulation. Even if her voice carried, it was muffled and no one would pay attention. The little ghost saw Su Qianqian's reaction and knew he'd freaked her out, so he quickly explained. Hey, Miss Su, don't be scared. The Ghost King sent me to deliver a message. I'll be gone as soon as I do. The kid pulled out the letter and held it out to Su Qianqian. Su Qianqian's scalp crawled. She just stood there, frozen. She took the letter, shaking like a leaf, and the little devil turned back into black mist and faded away. After the kid left, Su Qianqian was still in shock. Even though she'd seen Mo Cheng's scary side at one time, she still felt deep down that he wouldn't hurt her. This wasn't as intense as Mo Cheng's demonic look. The ghost was just pale, but she remembered the way he had just appeared. The more she thought, the more terrified she became. Su Qianqian thought of the guy living across the hall, the Celestial Master. She marched straight out and started pounding on his door, but to her dismay, after ringing for ages, no one answered. Was no one home? The thought made her hair stand on end. She scrambled back inside to grab her car keys, headed downstairs, and sped off to the garage.